Okay, so I will say thank you to the staff that made that video. You've just seen about half of the Global Alliance staff team, and almost the other half of it are put in making this conference work and making that video work. So not only has it been my privilege to work with so many of you in the community, it's been a tremendous privilege to work with a dedicated staff team, both the ones you're seeing today and their predecessors, many of them who are still part of our greater Global Alliance family. If you need a deeper dive, and I think if you were there yesterday, you will have seen two other components of this. There was a great, fun, animated video that shrunk that half hour down into a few minutes. There was Heidi's presentation on the roadmap, and particularly the strategic imperatives to make all of these things work better together, make them more accessible. And I think that, in combination with the video you've just seen, are a really comprehensive, clear view into the work of Global Alliance. If you want a deeper dive into any of these particular work streams, then I would encourage you to check into these videos. And I think before we finish today, we will make sure that all of these packaged, edited, final copies are made available to the broad community. So we can look forward to having clarity from Angela, maybe at the end of the session, as just what material will be available when. But our goal is to make all of this meeting available for anybody who couldn't actually be here live. So we're now going to move on to the next part of this. And you'll see here, if there was they were the staff leaders of those work streams, but in every one of our work streams, it's a combination of a staff person and a couple of very incredibly dedicated and also expert leaders in their field. And so we have that great combination of dedicated staff and dedicated volunteers who lead in a way that enables everyone else to be part of this process. And so for a question and answer, we've invited some of those leaders, our work stream chairs, to be part of the Q&A and give their version, not the, to Q&A, add their perspective to the video you just heard. So with that, and I would ask you, in order to raise those questions, use Slido. It's a great tool. Many of you used it yesterday. If you didn't, it's easy, it's fun. If you want to make a comment, then use your raise hand function. Continue the discussions in chat. We will be monitoring all of those, and then we'll now switch to look at those in Slido, and we'll use that as the basis of the discussion for the next 25 minutes or so. So please go to Slido. If you have specific questions for the panel, navigate to Slido. That was interesting. Navigate to Slido, enter the GA4GH code, type a question, and we will bring those questions back into the presentation, and I will start facilitating through them. So I would ask the panelists to open up their cameras, open up their microphones, and we'll do a quick, across that board, we'll ask them to quickly introduce themselves. I can't remember who was first, but we see Sarian's open first. So Sarian, why don't you start the introductions?
I really shouldn't follow instructions quite so quickly, but yeah, I'm Sarian Bowers. I'm head of policy at the Wellcome Sanger Institute, and I am not a lead of a work stream, but I do co-lead the passports.
Hi, I'll go next. I'm Brian O'Connor. I work at the Broad Institute, and I co-lead the cloud work stream along with FASP.
Okay.
Hi, everyone.
That's right. Oh, Melissa, yes. We missed you at the beginning. Go, Melissa.
Hi, everybody. I'm Melissa Handel. I co-lead the Clinical and Phenotypic Capture and Exchange work stream, and I'm at Oregon Health and Science University, and look forward to chatting with you all.
David? Okay, skip David for now. Andy?
Hi there, so I'm Andy Yates. I am a team leader at eBill EBI and also the workstream lead for the genomic knowledge standards group.
Okay, and I think we may have a switch on Discovery. And so whoever's joining us from Discovery, can they reveal themselves?
Yes, I think this was me. So Mark seems also to be online. So hi, this is Michael Bardis from Zurich, University of Zurich, and Swiss Institute of Bioinformatics, together with Mark Fiume, co-leads of Discovery Workstream.
Okay, and last but not least, our regulatory and ethics leads.
Hi everyone, Ted Dove, University of Edinburgh, and I'm focusing in particular on data protection issues, which obviously keeps everyone wide awake and busy for years to come. So very happy to be co-leading with my partner across the Atlantic, Jan Jolis. I'll let him introduce himself.
Oh yes, I am Jan Jolis from McGill University Center for Genomics and Policy, and I co-lead the regulatory and ethics workstream with Ted Dove. I will let Ted answer the question at this particular session. I'll be happy to take over from him in the next one.
Okay, and I see we have a couple of more panelists to introduce themselves, so keep going, and the questions are starting to come up. Well, Jonathan, Melanie, let's finish the intros.
Hi everyone, Jonathan Lawson. I work at the Broad Institute and I'm on the Data Use and Research Identities workstream.
Hi, I'm Melanie Corto from EMBL-EBI in the UK. I co-lead with Jonathan on the data use ontology.
Okay, other panelists? Okay. Guess we've got somebody from every group, I think. So we'll start, if there are other people on that participant panel who can answer the question better, then we will keep this open and interoperable. So let's make sure we get the right person answering the questions. So first up, and it's been in Slido, you can ask a new question or you can upvote somebody else's. So the first question is, what testing tools are available to help ensure different implementations of standards are implemented in a way that will ensure real world interoperability? So I think that's probably a little bit different depending on which work stream, but maybe Brian, you're nodding, look like you're about to say something.
I have thoughts. So first of all, come to the next breakout on FAST, because this is definitely something that others have been interested in as well. And I think the answer is twofold. One, part of it is the individual work streams might be producing code that will check their APIs and that sort of thing. But there's this bigger picture sort of issue of as we stitch together multiple systems that implement multiple GA4GH APIs, how well do they work? What are the gaps? Like, do they actually form a system that a researcher can use? And so this is one of the reasons that after the 2019 plenary, the Federated Analysis Systems Project, or FAST group, got together to try and do just that, use multiple APIs across multiple systems and try and understand, how well does real world interoperability. So we're actually going to give a talk in the next session where we talk about what that experience was like. I think longer term, Craig from our group is going to talk a little bit about our roadmap in the long run, but I can see the GA4GH in the future moving, towards a model where we can offer some of this testing functionality as something coming out of FAST, where we can test implementations and see that, in fact, they are compliant and that they are, working well together with other systems.
Okay, and Andy, I think you had another comment on testing.
Yeah, sure thing. Yes, I do. Another aspect that comes along with some of the API implementations, so a HSGET, RefGET, and RNA-GET have also developed their own suite of additional testing tools. Some of the file formats do as well. So speaking from experience from working on RefGET, we have an extensive implementation library and a test suite available. It was developed by a GSOC student, which implementations can run against their own APIs and get a report of how compatible they are and how compliant they are with spec. And that focus is being brought through onto a number of other APIs. I know that Jeremy is actually working on trying to generalize that as well. So this kind of testing toolkit will be available to other systems too. The Global Alliance is developing some of its own tooling around this as well, because we do realize that at least at an API level, this is very important to get implementations not only believing that they've implemented something correctly, but being able to run some kind of program that says, yes, they have done it correctly.
Okay, I also got a note there that Thomas is happy to weigh in as well on the large standards.
Yeah, I'll just provide a brief comment. I mean, I guess testing, you know, it sort of operates at different levels, and we just talked about the kind of spanning across the standards to put together an overall system, and that's really great that we're starting to think about that kind of that level of interoperability and testing. But I would say at the kind of lowest level, the individual standards have their multiple implementations, and you know, one of the key certainly in large-scale genomics, one of the key criteria is that we have demonstrated interoperability in some sense, moving towards a sort of compliance kind of suite essentially for the individual standards and implementations of them to show that they are interoperating and they are complying to the standard. But how it's actually done, I mean, it differs per standard. I think there's not one overarching approach to doing this level of testing, and you know, and in some ways that gives flexibility to the individual standards to go off and you know, work out what's the appropriate level of testing. But it is really great to hear that there is kind of a more higher level, you know, across standard sort of testing to try and demonstrate interoperability. That effort is going to start as well.
Yeah, for those who missed Heidi's presentation yesterday, clearly when we did the gap analysis and created the new strategic roadmap, a lot of conversation was about don't just keep generating more and more standards, make sure they work together, make sure we can implement them, make sure they're relevant to healthcare. And I think that as we start to see more implementations and more things like FASP and test beds, it gives us that opportunity. I think Michael is going to weigh in on Nicholas's question. And by the way, anybody who's in that participant mode, it can, and have got the right answer, whether it's whether you're already lit up or not, just joining and wave at me and I will come out, or send me a chat message and I'll come to you. I will say just before Michael answers Nicholas' question, the other thing is in the next phase of Global Alliance organizationally, we're increasing significantly our tech team. So at the moment we only have one tech team person, and that's Jeremy Adams. And we intend to hire another 3 or 4 and a chief standards officer. So a lot of these things that we've not been particularly good at in the past, like documentation, testing, compliance, reference implementations, that tech team is being hired in order to make that end part of our work much more structured, much more rigorous. Michael, do you want to take Nicholas's question?
Okay, so maybe I don't have a complete answer to that, but maybe kind of can rephrase this. So the question is now, if you think about full implementation demonstrator of full research data exercise, I don't think the cycle as a single implementation has to be there unbroken. I think the pieces in this cycle, they should be big enough and it should be covered somehow around, and the pieces should, in their different areas, fit nicely together. But one shouldn't think about this in a way of like a platform, complete platform doing everything from data ingestion from different metadata and genomics data and so on up to report delivery. So it's much more important that the pieces which are close together in scope really interact very, very well, and that we work on having there a good exchange of a compatible standard. Also, one has obviously to say that such a demonstration of a complete research medical health data life cycle is complex. The Global Alliance has a international scope, and there will always be bits and pieces which are much closely related to special things which have been done in their local jurisdictions, which are not universal. So while we work on offering tools to people around the world to align themselves with the proposed standards of the Global Alliance, it will always be this kind of friction, I think.
I would say, just to call out to Nicholas, that much of what we've been able to achieve is through the partnership with Elixir. So probably our best, most strategic relationship in making things real is through Elixir. So thank you for your leadership, Nicholas, in making that happen. I'm going to switch. There's a couple of Clin pheno. So Melissa, I'm going to throw those over to you or anybody else who wants to support Melissa in it. And then Ted will come to the EU General GDPR one next.
Oh, sorry, just to jump in, Peter, there is somebody, Mario Highland, who's been waiting to speak, I think, on one of the questions that came earlier before we
Okay, Mario, go ahead.
Hi, Peter. Can everybody hear me okay?
We can.
All right. It's one of the earlier questions regarding testing. It's not the right format here today, and I'm sorry that you guys don't know of us, but I would welcome an opportunity if in the future we could find a 30-minute window to talk about showing you what we are doing with respect to testing in the global world around interoperability. One of the things that our organization does is—
Sorry, Mario, I'm just going to jump in here and let's move on to the rest of the discussion. Thank you.
Yes, no, thank you.
We will. Melissa, over to you.
Okay, so the first question, Phenopackets has a family element. How will the new pedigree standard interoperate with this? So this is a good question, and I think is one of GA4GH's next implementation challenges. And so I would welcome participation from across the GA4GH in addressing this. So by that, what I mean is right now we have a family stub as well as a cohort stub within the Phenopackets standard. And this was done because the pedigree standard was not quite ready. We also have a stub for the variant representation because the variant representation standard was not quite ready. However, now the pedigree standard is about to be released, hopefully soon, and the variant representation is being released. And so it's time to sort of coordinate those three aspects into what we sort of call an interpretation packet. We can call it whatever you like, but the idea is that you have the phenotypic representation of an individual, a case, a person, associated with their genomic information using the variant representation, as well as the association with other members of their family using the pedigree standard. And so we want to try to evolve those three things together in this next phase. And really this is why it's a cross GA4GH initiative, because we really need to work closely with the GKS team for that. The other thing is that we just this week kind of launched a new working group focused on cohort representation and how do individual cases and pedigrees full of individual cases align with the ways in which we might represent a cohort that's defined in a computable way according to a specific phenotype set of inclusion or exclusion criteria or statistical methods that might be derived from individual cases or from the cases that are associated with the pedigree. And so that representation is also associated with this sort of triad of interpretation. And so we are also looking for volunteers to help define how that cohort standard will fit together with those other three pieces. So shall I answer the other one while we're there?
Yeah, do both.
Okay, so a report element. So I think that, I'm not exactly sure what that one refers to, but I think it's actually what I just mentioned, this sort of interpretation report. So the way in which we would collectively report on the three things together, the pedigree information, the case level phenotypic information for the members of the family that are reported in the pedigree, and their association with candidate variants coming from the genomic information. We really would like to have the standards be able to have sort of a computable report that would be preferably automatically generated by having those computable standards implemented. So that's kind of the dream right now, but it hasn't been defined yet.
Okay, so I'm going to switch to Ted or Jan, if you can take the GDPR question. But I don't know, just as Melissa was talking, I realized that I'm not sure if we've stressed it enough, that although we rely enormously on our driver projects to put resources and expertise in, the work streams are open. So if you've got interest, if you've got expertise that you can contribute, then we'll tell you later how to get involved with our work streams. Okay, Ted or Jan.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, and thanks for this question. It's obviously an important one and been on the minds of many researchers since the regulation came into force in May 2018. So maybe it's better to start with the second question within there, which is the GDPR posing any major challenges for data flow? I suppose part of the answer is it depends on whom you ask. So certainly there are some of our colleagues in the Global Alliance that have expressed a number of concerns about the impact of regulation on international data flows from the EU to other countries. And of course, this particularly speaks to international research collaboration and international research consortia, which depend on personal data, particularly genetic data, flowing across different jurisdictions. And so there have been some colleagues, particularly at the NIH, that have expressed concern, as one example, that the GDPR has stalled somewhere of up to 40 clinical observational studies on risk factors and exposures for cancer because of the law. Part of the challenge, I think, is that being a piece of EU law, in fact, works on consensus of 20, at the time, 28 member states. And there's a lot of variation amongst 28 member states in terms of what they consider different key terms. For most, anonymization and what counts as anonymized data versus what the term is used in Europe, pseudonymized data, or sometimes known as key-coded or de-identified. Anonymized data makes data transfers much easier, unfortunately, because there's different definitional senses as to what anonymization means in comparison with pseudonymized data, and when pseudonymized data might still be considered personal data, therefore factoring in the GDPR, it creates a number of concerns. So that is partly a way to get to the first question, which is, I'm delighted that since August 2018, so only a few months after the GDPR went into effect, the Regulatory and Ethics Workstream created the GDPR Forum. And not only did we put out an initial brief that outlines almost in a primer format what the GDPR is and how it impacts on genomic research and genomics in the clinical space as well. But subsequent to that, every month we put out these short briefs that field questions from all of you in the Global Alliance community about questions you want to know in terms of what does this law mean for my research consortia, for my project, for my clinical practice. So if you haven't joined that forum, please do so. You can get on the listserv and receive those monthly briefs, but more importantly, also submit your questions to us. So it's a band of interested people, people who are interested in data protection issues as it intersects with research and clinical practice. So we are certainly doing what we can in the Regulatory and Ethics Workstream to address these particular concerns about the impact of this law, recognizing that because it's a law, it requires a lot of work with data protection authorities in different member states as well as the European Commission. So there's a lot of hurdles and roads, but we're trying to make some impact there. So yeah, and I don't know if you wanted to add to that.
So I'm sorry, just to jump in, we have about 4 minutes left for the rest of the discussion.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I was going to suggest, since I don't think we have time to do justice to the questions we've got in front of us, and there are probably more single questions. So I was going to make sure that we have a mechanism. We'll capture all these questions and we'll ask the people who've got the best knowledge to respond to them. I'm seeing one in there about maturity maps. We've done a lot of work with Elixir on their maturity map and how it can be applied more broadly. So there's a lot of really good detailed answers that we can give to some of these questions. And we will do that. It's a little bit difficult if it's anonymous. So if you really want an answer to a question, I guess you've got to identify yourself. But we can take this, we can write the answers, and we can make them available to the whole community post-meeting. I'm going to just jump in at that one, which is the single biggest challenge for GA4GH right now. And my guess is that every one of us on this panel would answer that a little bit differently. So I'm going to we got 2 minutes. So I'm going to throw it open to if anybody can express it in about 15 seconds, what they think their biggest challenges in global alliances. And then I'm going to go last. So fire away. What, from your perspective, what's the biggest challenge? And open house to anybody.
I'll go first. Integrating clinical data in a computable way with the genomic data and essentially having a fully fledged end-to-end integration.
All right, MSB, Casey.
I'll go next. Ensuring that standards are complementary to each other and enhance each other.
Okay. How about some of those panelists that we haven't heard from yet? Jonathan, Melanie, from your perspective.
I think
go ahead, Jonathan.
I think one thing Melanie and I have been seeing is just wanting to guide implementation and implementers better, and having the resources and kind of tools to support them.
I'm going to echo that one. I'm going to say, you know, we all have those modules that are being implemented, and it's really about packing them together and having guidance on how we build that research cycle Niklas was talking about.
Okay, and then I see in I don't know if it's going to all attendees, but I see it certainly on the panelist chat, Thomas throwing in there adoption. And I think that's incredibly important. So this was never about have standards for theoretical purposes to sit on shelves or sit on hard drives and not be used. So the only way that we actually know these standards work and can be improved is when they get used in practice and used at scale and across many different things. So I think Thomas has probably hit something that all people would say. Global Alliance is about implementing, it's about making a difference. It is not just a standards development organization. Clearly, we've got to work with HL7 and CDISC and ISO for our standards to be relevant. But at the end of the day, these genomic standards have got to have impact and be used. I will say, if it was me answering that question, biggest challenge for Global Alliance, it is not the lack of opportunity or the lack of work. We have an enormous menu of things we could be doing. So I think the biggest challenge for all of us is to find the most important things, the things that the community needs, focus in on it, execute on it. And I'm very pleased that with the support of the funders that you will have seen in the funders video, we are in a better position than ever to be able to start executing on the most important things we need to be doing. But it's focus, focus, focus is my word that goes with Thomas's adopt. So I think we'll bring this Q&A session to a close. I'll take back control. And I will thank all the panelists. That was great. And I know, knowing you as individuals, you're always open, always available to answer people's questions. Here are the work streams. Here's how to get involved in those. If you're an individual, then subscribe. If you can bring your organization to Global Alliance and join the other 600 plus organizations, become an organizational member. And if you really want to get deeply involved, join one of our groups and bring your expertise. We're now going to go into breakouts. These breakouts will be an hour and then there'll be a break. And here's the bit.ly locations of all of those. If in doubt, go back to home and start from there. But certainly in Angela's just chatted to everybody, the specific links. But you've heard about these. Clearly, if your emphasis is on regulatory and ethics, that's the one to go to. If you want to see how these things all work together in multiple ways, connection demos is the way to go. And if you've got specific interest in either the GA4GH or data use, researcher identity, sometimes we use our acronyms too much, then I would encourage you to go to one of these breakouts. When the breakout is over, take your break, and we will start again in an hour and a half, an hour and a half from now, in whichever time zone you find yourself. And this will be back to the end of this. And the next one will be a panel on real world implementations. We've got 3 great examples of real world implementations of multiple Global Alliance tools. So please enjoy your breakout, enjoy your break, and we'll see you back here at whatever time makes sense for you. Thank you.